Permit yourself to change your mind when something is no longer working for you. The spiritual courage to evolve, one of the most silent forms of suffering in the human experience, comes not from what we endure, but from what we continue to endure long after it has stopped serving our growth. We remain in beliefs that limit us. We hold on to identities that confine us. We persist in patterns that wound us. We commit to paths that no longer reflect our truth. And often we do so not because they are right, but because we once believed they were. From a spiritual perspective, one of the greatest acts of awakening is giving yourself permission to change your mind, not as an act of inconsistency, not as a sign of weakness, but as a declaration of consciousness. To change your mind is to acknowledge that you are no longer the person who made the original decision, and that is the essence of spiritual growth. The ego craves certainty. It wants fixed beliefs, unchanging identities, and predictable outcomes. It fears contradiction because contradiction threatens its sense of stability. Once it decides something is true about itself, about others, about the world, it clings to that conclusion as though survival depends on it. Thus, when new experiences reveal that an old belief is no longer aligned with reality, the ego resists. It whispers, "You already chose this. You said you believed in this. You committed to this path. People will think you are unreliable. You must stay the same to be respected." But the soul does not evolve through rigidity. The soul evolves through awareness, and awareness is fluid. What was true for you at one stage of your journey may become untrue at another. What once healed you may later hinder you. What once gave you meaning may eventually become a source of suffering. To refuse to change your mind in the face of new understanding is to remain loyal to a past version of yourself at the expense of your present growth. Spiritually, reconsideration is not betrayal. It is alignment. It is the process of reevaluating what you believe, re-examining what you value, releasing what no longer resonates, returning to what feels authentic now. Every time you change your mind in response to deeper insight, you move closer to truth, because truth is not a fixed destination. It is a living relationship between your awareness and reality. You are not meant to remain static while life moves. You are meant to respond. Many of us confuse commitment with attachment. Commitment is conscious, a choice to remain present and engaged. Attachment is unconscious, a refusal to let go out of fear. We stay in situations long after they have stopped nourishing us because we invested time, we made promises, we fear judgment, we fear starting over, we fear being wrong. Yet spiritually, the willingness to admit that something is no longer working is not failure, it is liberation. When you release what is misaligned, you create space for what is meaningful. Nature itself models this wisdom. Trees shed leaves not because they hate them, but because they are preparing for renewal. The soul too must shed beliefs, roles and attachments that once sustained it, but now restrict it. Presence is the foundation of spiritual awareness. To be present is to meet reality as it is now, not as it once was. When you insist on holding on to a belief simply because you held it before, you are no longer living in the present. You are living in memory. Changing your mind is an act of returning to the present moment. It is saying, this was right for me then. It may not be right for me now. I trust my current awareness more than my past assumptions, and this trust is sacred. It requires humility to admit that you have grown beyond your previous understanding. Much of our resistance to change arises from identification. We say, I am this kind of person. I believe in this. I would never do that. These statements create psychological boundaries around who we think we are. But spiritually, identity is not a prison. It is a process. You are not meant to become a fixed character. You are meant to become aware. Thus, as awareness expands, identity must shift. To change your mind is to allow your identity to evolve in response to truth rather than expectation. It is to accept that who you are today may not be who you were yesterday, and that this is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be honored. Often when we change our minds, we are met with guilt. We feel that we are disappointing others. We are abandoning commitments. We are contradicting ourselves. We are wasting time or effort. But guilt is frequently rooted in the illusion that consistency is more virtuous than authenticity. From a spiritual perspective, authenticity matters more than consistency, because consistency without awareness becomes stagnation. You are not here to remain loyal to your past beliefs. You are here to awaken. An awakening requires revision. Changing your mind is not always logical. Sometimes it emerges as a quiet discomfort, a subtle misalignment, a sense that something is off, even if you cannot explain why. Spiritually, this is often the voice of inner guidance, not loud or dramatic but persistent. It may appear as a loss of enthusiasm, a growing restlessness, a repeated hesitation, an intuitive knowing that something has shifted. To ignore this guidance is to remain in resistance. To honor it is to move with life rather than against it. Every time you permit yourself to change your mind, you create the possibility of beginning again. And beginning again is not regression. It is renewal. Spiritually, there is no wasted path. Even the directions that no longer serve you were necessary for the understanding you now possess. Thus, when you release what is no longer working, you do not erase your past, you integrate it. You take its lessons forward while leaving its limitations behind. In the end, spirituality is not about being right. It is about being real. It is about aligning your life with what is true now, even when that truth contradicts what you once believed. Permit yourself to outgrow opinions, revise assumptions, change directions, release commitments, choose differently, not because you are lost, but because you are learning, not because you are inconsistent, but because you are alive. The spiritual path is not a contract you sign once and follow forever. It is a living relationship with awareness. As you deepen, your understanding will change. As your understanding changes, your choices will change. And as your choices change, your life will change. To permit yourself to change your mind when something is no longer working is to honor this living process. It is to accept that growth is not betrayal, evolution is not failure, and transformation is not inconsistent. It is awakening. In this way, each change of mind becomes a step toward alignment. Each release becomes an opening. Each new beginning becomes a return to truth. And your willingness to change becomes not a weakness but a spiritual strength.